Hi everybody, welcome to A Course in Miracles Applied. Today's topic is called the removal of blocks. There's one specific quote in the Course that brought me to doing this segment, and that we can find in chapter 8 of the text, section 7, and the section is called The Body as a Means of Communication. The quote can be found in paragraph 11, and it is basically the first sentence. It says, "The removal of blocks, then, is the only way to guarantee help and healing." So, if we take this line that Jesus tells us in the Course, and for 1 second just take it at face value, take it as 100% true statement. What does that mean for us in our process with the Course, in our daily lessons with the Course? In a way, it says it, the removal of blocks is the only way to guarantee help and healing. So does Jesus tell us, in one sense, don't worry about the light, don't worry about love, don't worry about how to be a good Course student, don't worry about doing the Course in a perfect way, don't worry about doing the workbook in a perfect way, don't worry about understanding what it says. If we juxtapose this to the introduction, to the last 2 lines in the introduction, last 3 lines where it says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God. The part of us that cannot be threatened, that cannot be changed, which is the Christ in us, as the Course says, is at home in God. We don't have to worry about that, right? Love would fall into that same realm. Love, oneness, heaven, the mind, the capital M mind, Christ, the Son of God, God. That would all be in the realm of the unchanging truth. So we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to try to go towards that, right? We don't have to be concerned with love and being loving at all. If love is eternal and changeless, there's nothing we need to do about that, right? We don't need to go towards it. There's no active pursuit of coming closer to love. Even though our process with the Course sometimes feels like it, we feel like we think we're far away from it, we're detached from it, we're separated from it, and we somehow have to make our way closer to it. We have to overcome this interior unpeaceful feeling somehow. And we have to have love as our goal, right? The Course says we don't have to do that at all. In fact, one way of looking at this, and I know this isn't a very popular opinion, but if we concentrate on love, we're missing the point the Course is trying to make. We're actually slowing down our process with the Course if we concentrate on the light, on the positive, on the light-filled love aspects of the Course. Because we are trying to get closer to love from the perspective of a non-loving place, right? You're basically in a cave in point A, you want to go to point B, which is the exit, but we're staring at the light, the tiny light at the end of the tunnel. And then Jesus says, the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing. He doesn't say it's partially the way to help and healing. It is the only way that guarantees. It is a guarantee. Help and healing are guaranteed when we remove the blocks. I sometimes talk about the attraction of love to love, the attraction of God to us. And I think this fits really well in this segment, because that is the reason why we don't have to do anything. Not only is love unchanging, so that means we don't need to do anything because we are love and we are in love. There's nothing else there is except the oneness of heaven and love, right? But we are unaware of that. We have made a dream in which we believe we are a person that is separated from love. And then we might think, oh, if I concentrate on love, that'll get me back, right? And the Course says, no, that's not the case. Love is love. There is nothing that we need to do about it. We don't have to think about it. It's a crazy thought, right? We do not have to think about love. We don't have to think about anything that is equal to love, oneness, heaven. We don't have to even spend one moment on that, because it will not help us to get out of where we are right now. It will help us, but I think it'll take much, much longer if we look at the light rather than the darkness. So when Jesus says the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing, I think he means that absolutely literally. So the attraction between God and us is like a very powerful magnet that is constantly on, right? It's not an electronic magnet where you can turn it on and off. It is a mechanical magnet, which means the magnets are laid out that there's a positive attraction, a permanent positive attraction, right? If those two come like this, it'll snap in to each other, and they're very hard to separate. And in our symbolic meaning of this, the attraction between God and us is very, very strong. And if you imagine that here's the magnet, here's God and here's us, and there's a very strong magnetic force between the two, and let's say there's this book, right, in between between God and us, right? There's this obstacle. Why should we worry about the magnetic force right? Why should we concentrate our efforts on the magnetic force? It's a permanent mechanical magnetic force. It does not go away. You cannot turn it on and off. It is permanent. So in our work with the Course, it makes sense when Jesus says the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing, because the rest is given, right? The rest is given. So if I drop this, if I remove the block, in this case the Course, right? All right, I'm going to see where this falls. If I remove it, the magnetic force claps the two together and they are inseparable, right? If I concentrate on the magnetic force, that doesn't change the block. The block is still there. So all we need to do, the only way that Jesus can guarantee help and healing is to remove the block. We remove the block and we're back with God. And the block is not a real block. The block is in our awareness, right? It says it in the introduction. It says it does, you mean the Course. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. This magnetic force is our natural inheritance, right? There's nothing we need to do about it. If we are the daughter or the son to a king, we are a prince or the princess, we don't have to do anything to establish our relationship with the king. We don't have to fight for it. We don't have to stand on our head or come up with solutions. We are the prince and the princess. Nothing can change that, right? So when Jesus says this Course aims at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, we only have to be concerned with the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, not love itself. We do not have to worry about love. We have to worry about the block that blocks us from being aware of the presence of love. So the awareness of love's presence and the block that blocks us from us being aware of love's presence. Right? It becomes clear that in all the beautiful passages in the Course, Jesus talks about the light and love and everything between us and our brother's love and all that. All that is a given. We don't have to worry about the light within us. We don't have to reach it. We don't have to reach the light in our brother. We don't have to see our brother in the light of Christ. We do not have to try to see our brother in the light of Christ. Or see our brother as sinless. All we need to do is be concerned with the block within us. This block to the awareness of love's presence is inside. And that's why Jesus explains the whole ego thought system in such depth, only for us to become aware of the block that we have, that we believe in, this block to the awareness of love's presence, not to make love come closer or be real or anything like that. Love is there, right? It is the awareness of love's presence that we have lost. So we don't have to do anything to the awareness. We literally have to remove the block that stands in between us and our awareness of love. Right? I think that's a big distinction. There's almost like two paths in the Course, in the larger Course community. One is to concentrate on the light, and one is to concentrate on the darkness. And Ken Wapnick was always the pioneer in concentrating on the block. Just look at the block, concentrate on the block. And there's this big misconception with the spiritual community, New Age community, that if we concentrate on the block, we make the block real. Right? If you concentrate on your guilt, you're going to make it real. So don't concentrate on it. Right? The problem with this is that we have made guilt real already. That's why we made the world. Right? We made guilt real. We became afraid. We projected ourselves into the world. We are now identified with a person in the world because we made guilt real. And now to pretend, I'm going to say pretend not to feel guilty doesn't get us anywhere, because we are already 100% identified with guilt. And then we drop a veil in front of us, and then we forget that we have. And we see the guilt outside. And then we drop a spiritual veil over that, and we think we're all happy brothers that are one with each other. And what then do we do with a line like this when Jesus says the only the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing? Right? It's just something to think about. And when we read in the Course, for me, it always makes sense to read the Course with a specific either situation or a person in mind. Because there's always people that we, if we would walk on the same side of the street, we would try to move to the other side of the street, right? That's the block. That guilt that we project onto that person, and then we want to get rid of it. We're moving to the other side of the street. That's the block. So if we read in the Course and we have a specific person or situation in mind, it immediately translates what we read in the Course into an application of the principle that we're reading, rather than in the abstract read in the Course, right? For example, when he says, that is in chapter 8, that's page 146, paragraph 7, the last sentence, 146 in the text, the last sentence of paragraph 7, it says, by offering freedom, you will be free. So we can read this with a specific person in mind, and we can say, by offering freedom, you will be free. If I were to offer freedom to this person, I would be free, right? And the next step would be, but where am I in this teaching? What's my state of mind right now with this person? Did I offer freedom so I can be free? Or do I still hold on to my grievances, right? And I believe the tendency would be to skip this step and say, no, I want to be free, so I want to offer freedom to my brother, and I want to let go of the grievance. And then we move on and we read on, right? It's a very normal thing to do because the ego does not want us to go anywhere near this block, right? It wants to spiritualize it and then move on. So one way of doing this exercise would be, we read the sentence. It says, by offering freedom, you will be free. And I think of a brother that I am not quite willing to offer this freedom for whatever reason, right? And instead of moving on from here, or thinking, no, I'm offering freedom to this brother. Rather than moving on, I ask myself, where's the block right now, in this very moment, when I read this in the Course, and I come to this line, by offering freedom, you will be free. That's a great line. But where is the block? Right? When I think about a brother, I think about somebody that hold a grievance against. And I realize I'm not offering freedom to this person, right? I want to enslave this person with my guilt. I want to give this person my guilt, right? So where is the block? The block is in the opposite of what this sentence says. The opposite of this sentence would be something like, I don't want to offer freedom to my brother. I don't want to be free. That is the block, right? And when Jesus says the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing, the healing of our relationship, of my relationship to the other person, which is not a person, which is just part of me in a projection, is the removal of this block. The block is that I want to make the other person sinful so I don't have the sin and the guilt within me, and the other person has it. My goal is that the other person is responsible, and that is the block. This is the block that stops the awareness of love's presence that flows between us, right? The love that flows between that person, my brother, and me. I am blocking it because I want to get rid of my belief in sin and the following guilt. I want to push it to that other person. That is the block. So how do we, if we realize that whatever we read in the Course, and whenever we have a little trouble understanding what the Course says, sometimes I find it helpful to ask, where's the block in it? Right? Where's the block in what the Course says? And what does it have to do with me? Where is my block? So we're always we're reading this beautiful book and the beautiful language and the light-filled language, and almost a little bit, the ego is almost a little bit distracted by the brightness of it, right? We want to concentrate on the brightness because we feel like we have lost it so long ago, and we just want to get back. There's this part of us that wants to get back, right? and then we concentrate on it because of the resistance against going back, right? We don't look at the wish to stay where we are, and that is the block. The part of us that is already floating towards the light, we don't have to worry about it, because that's like, go, you're all set, you're on the path. But the part of us that holds on to the ego, this individual existence, the guilt that is connected to it, that is the part we need to look at with Jesus, right? So how do we deal with this block? Once we identify it, once we realize the Course is about the removal of blocks, right? And we read it and we realize, okay, this is where the block is. I see that in myself now. So what do we do with it next? The ego is always a little insulted with this part, because that's why it wants to do Jesus's job. It wants to jump in and say, you can do what Jesus does, right? You can see the other person as sinless. So it wants us to try to do Jesus's job. It wants us to try to remove the block ourselves and to jump over the block and see our brother as sinless. It's a very normal thing, right? It's a very normal thing to do. And I think it's good to have a sit down with the personnel person in our company and make sure everybody knows what their job title is, right? The job title of the ego is to judge. The job title of the ego is also to try not to judge. It fakes trying not to judge. The job of Jesus is it to see with the vision of Christ. See through forgiving eyes. What would be our job? Right? Given the line that I read in the beginning, the removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing. Who is the one who removes the block? If we think it's us, we're in trouble. If we believe we are the ones that have to change our mind to try to see love in our brother, we are in big trouble. It's not our job to see our brother or to try to see our brother sinless. Trying to see our brother sinless is part of the block. I know it sounds counterintuitive. We have projected our guilt onto our brother, right? And now we feel upset, we feel abandoned and angry and all those feelings and thoughts we have. We can't now, from this mindset, say, I'm seeing you in a different light. We can try, but that's not what the Course is about. We don't have to be concerned about the positive. We don't have to be concerned about seeing our brother in the light of Christ. We have to realize that we don't see our brother in the light of Christ, because that's the block. Right? We have to only concentrate on the block. The removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing. It is guaranteed. So we don't have to worry about try to do Jesus's job. It is Jesus's job and the Holy Spirit's job to see our brother through the vision of Christ. That's their job. They know exactly what their job is. In fact, they wrote the manual for the job description, and they know exactly what their job is. The ego knows exactly what its job is. Its job is to judge, to make the other guilty. The ego's job is also to try to convince us to try not to do that. Right? So the ego is involved in our spiritual journey because it says, don't judge. Try not to judge. It won't work because it's not our job. Our job is not to judge, because love is permanent. We don't have to do anything about the positive, about the love that is there. The love flows between me and the other person. There's a constant flow of love that cannot be interrupted, period. So for me to try to do that makes no sense. Why should I try to love the other person if love is there? What I need to do is be concerned about the block that stands in between me and the awareness of love's presence at that moment, right? So how do I remove this block? The first part is to realize that I'm not the one removing it. I am only the one identifying it. If we're in a judiciary system and the executive branch, right, the three branches of government, the executive branch, we have the police, and within the police force, the police is only there to catch the bad guy. The police is not concerned of what happens with the bad guy after they make the arrest. That's a different branch, right? The detective in the police department only figures out the bad guy. It figures out the motive of the bad guy, and it follows that, and it nails it, and it says, you are under arrest, right? It puts the handcuffs on, and then it brings it to the police building, and then the detective goes home, and then he goes to the next case. The detective does not follow the person and say, okay, what's happening? Are we going to, what's going on with this person? This might be a bad example, but our job would be the one of the detective, right? We are only there to identify the block. Nothing else is our job. Our job is not to see the vision of Christ in the other person. It's not our job. That's Jesus's job. Our job is to look at the block and say, Jesus, look at this block with me. Look at this judgment with me. So we bring the illusion of our judgment and the truth of Jesus's love together. And because only one, either truth or illusion can exist, the illusion falls away, and what stays is the truth, which is the light of Christ in our brother. If the block comes together with the truth, the block must disappear. Makes sense, right? If the light is turned on in the darkness must disappear. If we pretend we are the light, we get all gobbledygook. We get confused and we see, why is this not working? right? Why is this not working? I'm trying so hard to love this person. You already love this person. We already love this person. There's nothing else between us other than an illusory block that we try very hard to make real. So the only concern we have to have in our journey with this course is to identify the block and then say, Jesus, please look at this with me. I'm not seeing my brother in the light of Christ. And it takes a long time to get over that notion that because we're all so Catholic, right, in a way. And so we have indoctrinated ourselves so much that we think Jesus wants us to be good course students, and not judge, right? That is the ego's Jesus. Jesus would never say that. Jesus is a presence of love. That's it, right? So we bring the block, we look at the block, says, oh, the course says, give freedom to your brother so you can be free. I'm just thinking about my uncle and I hate him, and for me to try not to hate him at this very moment is not working. It will not remove the block. The removal of the block lies solely in bringing this block, saying, I hate my uncle with a passion. I don't want to have peace for him because this is what he did. This is what I think he did. Jesus, please help me with that. And over time, we realize that it's not the uncle, it's our own guilt that we projected onto the uncle. And we look at that block that we have given. The block is the block of guilt. We look at that with Jesus, and if we bring guilt and Jesus together, the guilt must disappear over time. And that is what the Course says in the workbook, page 401, when it says, forgiveness is still, it quietly does nothing. Quietly does nothing. It merely looks and waits and judges not. That is forgiveness. We're not the one forgiving. We are asking the presence of love that is forgiveness, because it is the only thing that can look and wait and judge not. We ask that for help to look at the block with us, right? So we ask forgiveness to look with us at the guilt that we have projected. And forgiveness looks and waits and judges not. We might still be judging because we're with the ego, but forgiveness doesn't. Our job is only to identify the block. I've said it a lot today, and this is always a reminder for myself to do that same, to work with the same principle, right? And the final point I'm making is chapter 22, section 5. Section 5, paragraph 2, chapter 22, section 5, paragraph 2, the last sentence. It says, for sin is carved into a block out of your peace and laid between you and its return. This is our return home, right? So sin is the block. Our belief in sin is the block. And we have to bring that sin, that belief in sin that we have given to somebody else, we look at it and we invite Jesus, which is forgiveness, the presence of forgiveness in our mind, to look at it. And forgiveness doesn't do anything with the block because the block is illusory. And if we bring the presence of love together with the illusion must disappear. as if it was never there. And that is how we heal our mind. That is the only way to guarantee help and healing in the Course. I'm just going to read a final meditation, which is from lesson 265. Creation's gentleness is all I see. It says, I have indeed misunderstood the world because I laid my sins on it and saw them looking back at me. How fierce they seemed, and how deceived was I to think that what I feared was in the world instead of in my mind alone. Today I see the world in the celestial gentleness with which creation shines. There is no fear in it. Let no appearance of my sins obscure the light of heaven shining on the world. What is reflected there is in God's mind. The images I see reflect my thoughts. Yet is my mind at one with God's, and so I can perceive creation's gentleness. Thanks again for watching.